BionicDance is filmed in front of a live studio audience.
Blessings upon all of you, and I want to make an attempt today. I don't even want to try too hard. I don't even have any scripts or anything like that. I just want to quickly refute the claim of atheism is better for humankind.
Whether it's better for the world or not is immaterial. Self-delusion and dedicating one's life to it matters just a little bit more. I love Star Wars, but I'm not going to spend my life feeling a force I know is fictional flowing through me. Let's do this. Greetings, fellow space travelers, BionicDance here. Can someone please explain to me what it is about God-botherers filming their videos in vehicles? We shouldn't need a term for this, but car theist seems to have taken hold. Anyway, on to the show.
Quite honestly, atheism would never really work. First of all, you cannot prove that there is no God, you know?
What do we have to do? When is this shit gonna end? It's not our job to prove there is no God. It's your job to prove there is one. If you can't show it, why should we believe it?
And then, for most of us, we who are theists, we think there's a God, but we cannot yet prove it either. You know, 110%, right? So that kind of refutes the claim of you're really an atheist because you haven't proven it, you know?
Again, it's not our claim. It's our position on what you've said. If you didn't bandy about this wacky notion of magical sky beings, we wouldn't even be thinking about it, much less talking about it. But that's far less important than what was just said. We can't prove it, so that refutes our claim. But apparently it doesn't refute the claim of theists when they can't prove it. Holy double standard, Batman!
And if you say like it's better for the society, you know, how do you think you have any morality whatsoever? Where would morals come from?
And what does it take to get rid of this stupid argument? Morality comes from a desire to minimize pain, both our own and other people's. Pain sucks. We want as little of it as possible. Don't you? If nobody behaved themselves, we'd endure a lot of pain. So we behave ourselves in order to hurt less. No God required.
I mean, all the laws in the world is written by either a very strong philosophical / religious person, you know, not a person, but like, you know, where it came from as a religious saying and commandments, you know, or just a pure religious law, you know.
Does anybody else hear that? It sounds like he's got a Geiger counter going, and it is running hot. The guy's clearly a mutant, but alas, without the really cool superpowers.
And, you know, if there are none of these laws, there are no laws, remember?
If we don't have divine commandments, we don't have any laws. There are legions of lawyers who'd be inclined to disagree. We have plenty of laws from ostensibly secular sources, and the absence of a divine origin doesn't make them any less valid.
If you have no laws, what would you do when you wake up in the morning? I mean, I tell you what I would actually do if I were a savage, like atheist. First of all, I'm gonna wake up and try to find some food, and whenever I got some energy, I'm gonna find, like, you know, who I could rape and where I could steal from.
People like this are terrifying. No God equals rape and murder? Is that really the only thing stopping you? How fucking sociopathic do you have to be if a God you can't even prove is real is the only inhibition keeping you from wantonly destroying the lives of others? Here's a question. Just how long do you think everybody else is going to put up with that shit before they decide to take your ass out? You're making their lives worse, and they're not gonna love you for it.
I mean, that is actually would be my lifestyle, quite honestly. Why wouldn't it? Because there are no laws. I would just go after the things that I like, you know? And I wouldn't care about the society. Why would I actually care?
I've heard far too many theists talk like this, and like I said, it's terrifying. I'd like to not believe him. I'd like to think he's full of shit and he knows it.
The thing about caring, it's an innate feeling. It's an, you know, the feeling of you need to be nice is an innate feeling that actually God has inputted in us, you know what I'm saying?
Oh, I know what he's saying. I also know that it's baseless. Caring is a survival trait. Building a community and empathizing with others in order to desire keeping the peace builds a stronger civilization. But then he goes off the rails by saying that this is innate in us because of God. How does he know this? Just 'cause, apparently.
You know, a lot of times, a lot of people regret. What would you actually have a regret feeling? You know, if it is not from a type of quality that like God is giving us.
It's a reasonable byproduct of a survival trait. If we didn't regret, we wouldn't learn from our mistakes, and if we don't learn from our mistakes and thus keep making them, other people suffer. And now we're back to possibly getting our asses kicked for it. Survival of the fittest, and giving a fuck about your fellow man makes society more fit. Again, no God required.
Let's say, for example, you know, we're a guy and that rape like, you know, 10, 20 women, and then to me, I should be super proud, you know, but unfortunately, most people, even a lot of the rapists, they feel guilty of their own crime. They feel like they couldn't control, they feel like they've done something wrong.
Can I just replay a little bit of that for you?
To me, I should be super proud, you know, but unfortunately, most people, even a lot of the rapists, they feel guilty.
Unfortunately, the rapists feel guilty, but he would be proud of his sexual assaults. This guy should be locked up for the good of humanity. This guy is a fucking psychopath.
Where did that come from? I mean, obviously the worst criminals in the world, like, they definitely should be happy what they have done because they became famous, you know, other than the fact they have got apprehended, but...
So the only thing you should ever be sorry for is getting caught. I guess this explains a lot about their belief in God's omniscience, because no matter what, you're going to get caught. So you better behave yourself. Kinda like Santa Claus.
You know, yet they still have this feeling of they've done something wrong. Why? It's because they know there is something out there that is kind of judging him.
Something like, say, other people. But apparently they don't matter.
Another thing about atheists is every single time you say God, if you actually have realized, they just go almost ballistic. It's like as if you have said a cuss word to him.
I don't know atheists who do this. Most I know just roll their eyes. Maybe it's just him, what he says, and how he says it. He's already shown us his sociopathic side. Perhaps when he's face to face with an atheist, he preaches. Now.
Maybe it's in fact as an innate nature for anyone to believe in God, believe in something that's out there. It's just they have lost faith and they want everybody else to go with them.
There are a lot of things innate in human nature that should be ignored, and the reliance on faith instead of facts is one of them. Based on the available data, your belief and reality are not in line with each other. But that's not why those of us who are outspoken about our atheism want the rest of you to get a clue. I've said it often, and I'll say it again. I argue against religion in self-defense against theists who would use their religion as an excuse to be assholes.
Another thing about atheists is definitely to make the world as chaotic as possible. Then they can have all the drinks that they wanted to, all the homosexualities they wanted to, all the you know, adultery and fornication if they wanted to. It's because of that.
Did he say fornication?
Fornication.
I think that perhaps chaotic was the wrong word to use for what he's trying to describe, because what it sounds like he's trying to say is nonconformist. After all, doing these things tends to be something that religious people will frown upon. And I suppose to them the world is chaotic if we're not all conforming. But how does he justify saying that this is a motivation to become atheist, this need to rebel? That simply doesn't follow. Most atheists who aren't simply indifferent to religion are so because they saw religion's flaws, not because they wanted to give it the finger.
That's the whole point of atheism. I mean, I really don't see the point of like atheism good for the humankind.
The ultimate authority has spoken. He doesn't see what's good about atheism, therefore it cannot be true, apparently.
I mean, if you want to have a lot of fun, just go ahead, you know, quite honestly. But there is no reason to spread the concept of atheism and having people to dive in with you, you know?
Because nobody spreads the concept of God's existence and expects everybody to dive in with them. Nope, No reason to do that at all.
Look at the world today. They are more agnostic and atheist people than ever. I mean, do you think the morality right now is higher than 50 years ago when there are more religious people?
Yes. Next question.
I mean, there's your answer. It's pretty simple. And the trend that's going right now for all these people that are atheists, they're going back to paganism.
He's going to go on for quite a bit about paganism. It's nothing to do with actual atheism, so we're going to ride right on past that bit. As usual, in the name of integrity, there's a link to his video in the description, so if you want to see that bullshit, the option's available.
And the sophistication of all these, the couple of monotheistic religions, Islam, Christianity, and Judaism, they have laid down a lot of laws for a lot of countries, quite honestly. And that is one of the reasons why these countries have been advanced.
The advances in these countries have happened in spite of religion, not because of it. Scientifically and socially, nearly every bit of progress has happened amid the kicking and screaming of religious conservatives who don't ever want anything to change, certainly not outside of their own personal comfort bubbles.
Imagine if it is still in the age of only purely no religion. How could they even establish laws? There will be only warlords. There will be only like the strongest, guy in the pack. Then he's gonna form a group, and there's gonna be leaders. There's just gonna be dictatorships.
What he doesn't seem to realize is that occasionally dictatorships get overthrown if the people get grouchy enough and want to install a government that's more beneficial to their own lives. Not to mention the number of dictatorships that are based in religion. How many theocracies have ever existed?
And usually that always leads into dictatorships because there's a person at the end who has absolute power.
Absolute power? You mean like your God? Religion is the ultimate dictatorship.
In China, actually, so China never had a really strong religious upbringing, and the cycle of all the kings were pretty much, they thought themselves are God or sons of gods.
So then it was religious.
And every single time they come into power, either they're kind or not kind, doesn't really matter. At the end, they won't be kind because they always try to do things for themselves and they don't really have religion.
You gotta pick one. Either they thought they were gods and thus had religion, or they didn't think so. You can't have it both ways. And even if you decide they were atheists, you cannot put this on atheism. The problem is the style of government, not whether or not it was secular.
If there's no God out there, we're just another mammal, we could just do what the mammals do all the time, and we'll be no different from monkeys and apes and things like that. It's just the fact that we have gotten more advanced than they are.
What we're hearing is someone with a desperate need to be special, someone whose ego would be damaged if it turned out a God doesn't exist. His video is called Asian Guy Refutes Atheism in 9 minutes, but he has done nothing of the kind. He hasn't presented a scrap of evidence to show that a God exists. He probably thinks he has, but saying, golly, how the world would suck otherwise, is not an argument against atheism.
If you think that you are just like a monkey and an ape, go ahead, just be an atheist, And then I think if there's a God out there, I think at the end, that's how he's going to treat you at the end. He's going to treat you like an animal.
Which is how exactly? Do animals just automatically go to hell? Are they not judged too? If not, then what happens to them? I'm not sure I've ever heard that little question addressed, actually. But animal or no, my good deeds and bad will be judged by other people, if not by a God. That ought to be enough. Until next time, fellow space travelers, this is BionicDance saying don't run on automatic. Instead, please think.
So, who wants cake? You have to rate first.